There are days when Patriots news doesn't just inform you, it pokes you. And honestly, I like those days even more, because that's when Foxborough shows you who's thinking ahead and who's just reacting to noise. Today's batch is loaded. There's a draft projection that's going to split this fan base, a wide receiver market that could get very interesting, an offensive piece a lot of people are sleeping on, and a defensive name that fits exactly what this team is trying to become again. If you live and breathe Patriots football every day, stay with me, because this one has a lot to say. This first story goes right at one of the most sensitive parts of this fan base, because the second people hear about a first-round trade-up, half the crowd gets fired up and the other half braces for disaster. But in this case, the most interesting part isn't even the jump from 31 to 25 in Rob Rang's projection. What really matters is what that kind of move would say. Because if New England moves up and takes Emmanuel McNeill-Warren, a lot of people are going to say the team ignored bigger needs. I wouldn't rush to that take. The lazy read goes like this. Tackle, edge, and wide receiver are more obvious priorities, so safety would be a luxury. Sure, that line works on a Rush debate show. Inside a real roster, it starts falling apart. Kevin Byard was a strong addition. Experienced, respected, and directly tied to what Mike Vrabel values. That matters. But he's on a one-year deal, and he turns 33 in August. Then you look behind him, and the depth doesn't exactly make you feel comfortable. That's the kind of detail serious teams address before it turns into a problem. And McNeill-Warren isn't in this conversation by accident. His profile is what grabs you. Reliable tackling, the ability to play deep, drop into the box, and still move around the slot. That kind of versatility changes calls, changes alignments, and gives a coordinator freedom to defend the field without getting stuck depending on one guy. The Patriots already went through major changes in that safety room, lost names, reshuffled responsibilities, and now they're at the point where they have to think about the present without taking their eyes off the future. That's not overcautious. That's smart team building. If Vrabel and Elliott Wolf see him as a player who can contribute early and eventually grow into something bigger, then the aggressiveness of the move makes perfect sense. And I'll go one step further. Sometimes fans confuse the loudest need with the real one. The biggest hole isn't always the only one that needs attention. A team trying to get back to going toe-to-toe with the best can't build a roster just to put out fires. Sometimes it has to strike early. And if this projection is reading the Patriots the right way, the message is simple. New England does not want to get caught unprepared again. The second story comes in from a totally different angle, and I'm going to be blunt here. If A.J. Brown doesn't happen, that cannot become an excuse for the Patriots to step back and settle for an offense that's just solid, just functional, just tidy. Drake Maye needs more than structure. He needs real threat. He needs the kind of player who makes defenses back up, changes coverages, creates fear. And that's why this whole conversation about alternatives matters so much to me. Because when the top name heats up and then cools off, a lot of franchises act like the market is dead. The Patriots cannot think that small. And the two names being floated here point to two different paths, but both are dangerous for any defense. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the more fascinating one, not because he's dominated the league from day one, but because there's still a real feeling that we haven't seen his full ceiling yet. He's already flashed more of the version people were so high on coming out of the draft, even with shaky quarterback play and a bad situation around him. That matters. Rebuilds can wreck development, kill rhythm, and stall talented players before they ever really take off. If Arizona decided to open that door for draft capital, the Patriots should absolutely be in the conversation. Now, if the goal is more immediate physical impact, DK Metcalf hits this debate like a hammer. This is the kind of wide receiver who changes the picture before the ball even gets there. Size, explosion, vertical threat, power through contact. And let me say it straight, this offense needs that. Romeo Doubs helps. Of course he helps. But a room with Doubs, Metcalf, and Drake Maye completely changes the conversation about this unit's ceiling. You stop talking only about progress and start talking about putting real stress on opposing secondaries. That's the whole point. The Patriots cannot treat the hunt for a high-impact receiver like some luxury item. It's not a bonus. It's part of speeding up the most important quarterback this franchise has right now. If A.J. Brown stays out of reach, fine. Change the route. What cannot change is the ambition, because teams that want to matter again don't go into a season hoping a collection of decent pieces will solve what rare talent usually solves by itself. If there's another big door to knock on, New England needs to knock hard. This third story might not bring the same noise as a star receiver or a draft trade, but I'll tell you something a lot of people take too long to admit. Really good teams get built with the pieces casual fans brush off as details. And that's exactly why I liked hearing James Devlin talk about Reggie Gilliam the way he did. When a guy who actually lived the weight of that role in New England looks at this signing and basically stamps it with approval, I pay attention. Because Devlin isn't selling nostalgia, he's recognizing value. Gilliam comes in with a strong reputation after a season where he was highly regarded, and that lines up directly with what Josh McDaniels likes to do when he has the personnel to vary the offense without tipping his hand. That's what gets me excited. To a lot of people, fullback feels like a museum piece. In Foxborough, with the right coordinator, it can become a tool that gives an offense shape, protection, rhythm, and a little edge while it's still trying to figure out its identity. And offensive identity doesn't start only with a big-name wide receiver. Sometimes it starts when the offense starts dictating contact. Gilliam gives you that. He can reinforce protection, clear lanes in the run game, show up as a safety valve, and mess with a defense trying to read formations like it already knows what's coming before the snap. For a young quarterback like Drake Maye, that has real value. Not every kind of help comes from a 40-yard explosive play. Help is also winning a short third down because the block was perfect. Help is turning a simple call into a clean gain because the defense hesitated for half a second. That's where a player like this matters. And there's another layer here that I really like. Over the last few years, the Patriots lost too much of that feeling of being physically committed on offense, disciplined, and ready to make an opponent deal with punishment for 4 quarters. I'm not talking about old-school football just for the sake of nostalgia. I'm talking about getting back to an offense that can hurt you in different ways. If Gilliam really becomes a regular piece in this system, he could help bring that back. Toughness, versatility, and a nastier personality for the team on the other side to deal with. That's why I think it's way too weak to dismiss this move as some minor detail. On an offense trying to protect its quarterback better, sustain the run game, and expand what it can call, a complete fullback stops being decoration and starts becoming part of the engine. And if Devlin saw that right away, I'd say the fan base should take another look too. Because sometimes the move that seems small is exactly the one that helps change the behavior of the whole unit. The fourth story comes in with less national shine, but it has a lot of the edge this team needs to get back, and that's exactly why I can't look at this profile and treat it like just another late conversation name. Young is the name here, and what jumps out on tape and in his background is not some overproduced prospect hype. It's strength, it's force, it's a fight on every snap. At 6'6", 262 pounds, with 6.5 sacks and 16.5 tackles for loss last season at Missouri, he enters this conversation with production, physical presence, and a style that lines up directly with what Elliott Wolf described when he talked about what he wants in an edge rusher. Explosiveness, violence, first-step burst, and the ability to win in more than one way. And that fit does not feel forced. Young met with the Patriots at the Combine. Missouri used him both standing up and with his hand in the dirt. He showed he can stay on the field in different situations, and he brings the kind of trait coaches love when they're trying to harden a roster. He does not avoid contact. He goes right through it. Lance Zierlein's description makes sense when you watch him. He destroys blocks, drives through opponents, walks tackles back, and creates real discomfort. For a team trying to raise its aggression level on the edge, that is not some small footnote. That is usable material. Now, the real debate here is not whether he has Patriots traits. On the field, he has plenty. The delicate part is everything off it. There's the DWI in December, and there's also the aggravated assault case from 2023. And that changes the tone of the conversation because New England cannot miss on this kind of evaluation. You can't fall in love with the player and act like the rest doesn't matter. It does. A lot. Locker room culture is not something you fake into existence. If Vrabel wants to rebuild a strong identity, he needs talent, yes, but he also needs to trust the kind of person he's bringing into the building. So this is the classic draft case where the talent pulls you in and the context demands real discipline. If the Patriots do the homework, understand the full picture, and feel secure about who Young is now, then the football fit makes a lot of sense. He has size, controlled violence on the field, power against the run, and tools to pressure the quarterback. But if the personal evaluation doesn't land in the right place, then the risk stops being just about football and starts bleeding into what the franchise is trying to rebuild. And that's where I want to hear from you. If you were in that draft room, would you bet on the physical upside and the violence he brings to this defense, or would you hit the brakes because of the background and go find a different edge profile? 4 stories, 4 signals, and the message coming out of all of it is way too strong to treat like coincidence. The Patriots are looking for more impact, more toughness, and more control over their own path. Whether it's a possible trade-up for a versatile defender, a real push for more weight in the passing game, an offensive piece that could change the identity of the unit, or an edge prospect who sparks a football and culture debate at the same time, the center of the conversation is the same. New England wants to become a real problem again. Now I want to hear from you. Which one of these stories matters most for this team's future? And tomorrow, we do it again.